My name's Tim. I'm an alcoholic. Some very sensible people have chosen just the right moment to leave. Now, I was talking to someone yesterday and I said, "How did you like the meetings so far?" And she said, "I napped in every single one." And I think this is one of the unstated merits of AA. I can be tense as anything about my whole life, and I go to a meeting and I suddenly realise whatever it is going to be just fine. And I relax and I fall asleep. And there was a character many years ago who had come to a gazillion meetings and he would sleep through the whole meeting and he would snore through the whole meeting and other things would sometimes happen and everyone got so angry with him. And after a few years, I don't know if they changed his medication or something, but he got really perky and then he started to cause loads of trouble and everyone wished he was sleeping again. Sometimes when they're sleeping, they're easier to deal with. I'm an AA, but I have been an Al-Anon for a while as well. Sometimes when they wake up, it's not graceful and you wish they were still asleep. My date of sobriety is the 24th of July 1993. I've been an Al-Anon since September 1995. My presence in Al-Anon has been a little bit ghostly sometimes, whereas in AA I've been reasonably constant, but I haven't had a drink since 1993, which is the main thing for me. And I always have a go at this poor old meeting. It's a perfectly good meeting. There's one near me, but it's got an illustrative name. It says, "We came for the drinking, but stayed for the thinking." I didn't. I'm staying for the drinking bit, or rather the not drinking bit. That is what AA is about for me. End of. If anything else nice happens along the way, marvellous. I'm not going to turn my nose up at it. But this is about not drinking. And I've known people with wonderful programs who got real busy with some other stuff thinking, well, I shall practice the principles and all my affairs out there and that's where God wants me to be. Well, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But what always works in my observation and experience is keeping the main thing, keeping AA the main thing in my life and keeping the one thing in AA which is the main thing, which is carrying the message to other alcoholics. There's no shortcut. There's no weekend in Weston-super-Mare where you get 100 people in a room and take them through the steps and boom, now they're, It's hard work. It's laborious. Each person is different. So I didn't get to many of the meetings yesterday because the sponsee calls kept coming in. I've got a lot of people at various tricky bits of the book. And there's just a lot to discuss. If people ask me for my experience, boy, are they going to get it. They're going to get every single damn thing I know or have experienced about the line in question, the topic in question. So there were some phone calls which were over an hour long. That is the work of Alcoholics Anonymous. The fellowship is wonderful, but it's the vessel which contains that work. And I haven't found anything to supplement that or make it better, just one alcoholic talking to another. If someone asks me for help, I'm not necessarily the right person, but they've asked me for a reason. The conversation needs to happen. Sometimes they've asked me, and my job is to redirect them to someone else who's more suitable, who's better positioned geographically, whatever. But something, I hate the word, but sacred is happening. Something otherworldly is happening when an alcoholic actually picks up the phone or does a little twizzle on WhatsApp and says, can you help me? That must be responded to somehow. Now, it doesn't mean that whenever I hear the cry, I am the cavalry coming over the hill. Sometimes I'm part of the chain that gets the cavalry to come over the hill. I'm not the right person for everyone. But let's go back to the beginning. Alcohol. AA very successfully answered a few little questions that I had. I was 21 when I got sober, My sobriety date was about 6 months after my first AA meeting, and I'd been to a lot of AA meetings in those few months. So lesson number one, going to AA meetings will not keep me sober. It might be necessary in the process of keeping me sober, but they themselves, the meetings, are not the thing itself. They're not the casserole, they're the casserole dish. You try to eat the casserole dish, you'll break your teeth. So AA answered a few little questions. Question number one, why when I drink do I drink so much that I regret it the next morning and cause problems even during the drinking bout? Certainly cause problems the next day because I'm too ill to think and act like a regular person and I'm sweating and weird. Why do I drink so much? Why do I drink so much? And I thought it was my rotten old childhood. I thought it was my emotions or my temperament, or I'd had a bad day, or I'd been given bad guidance, or whatever it was. But the thing is, every one of those elements of my history, which I said, well, that's why I drink so much, you can find a gazillion other people out there, wherever out there is, who have the same childhood, who don't drink like me. So that's not it. And you'll find loads of people. My best friend in AA for many years was someone who had an idyllic childhood, but became an alcoholic anyway. What's his excuse? All of those excuses don't work. There's a wonderful line in the doctor's opinion. It's a bit of a mouthful. They should have edited it better, but they didn't. It didn't satisfy us to be told that we couldn't control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life in full flight from reality or were outright mental defectives. Let me put that in language that I understand. People would say to me, the reason you drink so much is because you're emotionally immature, or you're mad, or you're thick. I wasn't thick, I wasn't mad, and actually I was pretty good at handling certain other things. It wasn't because of a generalised emotional immaturity. I didn't burn myself on the cooker 100 days in a row because I was emotionally immature. I burned myself on the cooker very badly when I was about 20, and I was careful with the cooker every single time after that. So I was capable of learning from a bad experience and adjusting my behaviour accordingly. With alcohol, that didn't work. None of those excuses fly. We're left with just one reason. I drink the way I drink because that's the way I drink. End of. It's got nothing to do with anything. It's just a phenomenon, which is why they call it the phenomenon of craving. And there's a funny old thing. Craving in the language generally, and I always use this example, but I think it's a helpful one. In my office, there's me, there's 7 other people. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, one by one, they shamefacedly go to the chocolate corner and go and get a little bit of chocolate. You can see them at their desk looking across at it thinking, they know that all of them have got, complicated relationships with food, but nonetheless, they go and they have the craving, they cannot overcome the craving, they go and have the hobnob or the Turkish delight or whatever happens to be in the corner of sin that day. And they do the thing they're craving to do, and then the craving is gone, and they're good until 5:30, then they're off again. They don't go back again and again and again, and they don't then take the box of Turkish delight and run away into the stairwell with it. That's craving in the ordinary language. Craving with alcohol is a very different thing. I stopped drinking for 3 months when I was 18 because I was losing my mind. And when I started again, I didn't start again because, oh my God, I so desperately want to drink. I can't bear my emotions and the coil getting tighter and tighter in my stomach. No, I just thought it'd be nice. I had one, boom, off to the races, and I thought, now I want to buy 5 bottles. Immediately, 5 bottles, please. That hadn't been the plan. The craving is generated by drinking the alcohol. And in regular systems, I crave something, I consume it, I'm satisfied, full stop. That's the end of it until next week. With alcohol, I'm just pootling along. I have a drink and boom, craving, and it goes consumption, craving, consumption, craving, consumption, craving. There is no satisfaction in that loop, which is why it carries on until my body fails. Anytime I say I'm drinking because of X, Y, and Z, or in order to X, Y, and Z, or because of my feelings, I'm saying I'm not powerless. I was making decisions. It's one or the other. Powerless means that when I have a drink, I'm off to the races, but it means something else as well. AA answered a second question for me, which is why, when with every fibre of my being, every cell of my body, I do not want to go back to that life where I'm embarrassing myself, damaging my relationships, physically sick every day, having to let go of things of genuine value in my life which require effort and self-sacrifice and time and energy. But I have to let go of them because the drinking is either drink or those things. I can desperately not want to go back to that life and yet find myself starting again. And they say, ta-da, mental obsession. Now, the mental obsession, again, it's just like with craving. What it means in AA is not what it means in the big book. An obsession in the world means, let's say you love Lady Gaga, whoever she is, and you go to all the concerts and you have all the posters. I don't know, do they even have posters these? I don't know what the children do, but you know what, when someone is obsessed with something, they make it their whole life. But that is because they love it and they're deciding to make it their whole life. That's not the mental obsession. It is not a preoccupation with alcohol. I'm, again, pootling along through my day and I'm hijacked by the notion that a drink is a good idea and it marches me off to the pub. So it starts off with a hijack situation and then it turns into a hostage situation. And the hostage doesn't get to choose how long the hostage situation carries on for, which is why I must never have another alcoholic drink. But the nature of my alcoholism, it's alcoholism, not alcoholism. What that means is the physical craving, if it gets triggered, is just going to take me onwards to God knows whatever fate awaits me. I might be back the next day. One very good friend came back after one bottle of red wine, lightweight. One bottle of red wine back the next day. We're really glad he's back, 22 years sober now, hooray. Other people go out and die. And in my experience, this is going to be a little bit controversial. It usually doesn't start with alcohol. It starts with Sudafed, and then you discover, oh my God, that peps me up. I got a lot more done this morning. And then you think, maybe something else over the counter, which is a little bit strong, which does something slightly different. And the door gradually gets creaked open, and then 2 or 3 years later, boom. Or you go and get a diagnosis. Wonderful. Maybe the diagnosis is real, but who cares? But the point is, there are lots of ways of getting back to alcohol without it looking like you're going back to alcohol, and then by the time alcohol gets you, it's too late. I've seen that so many times. There's a scene in House of Cards where one of the characters, who's a recovered alcoholic, squirts whiskey with a syringe directly into the back of his throat. It's the weirdest thing. And it's because, well, he's not having a drink out of a glass, is he? I totally understand the logic of that. The way alcohol gets me is inch by inch by inch. Little compromise here, little compromise there. Shaving off the corners of honesty, keeping a few little things to myself, believing that the compartments really do have strong bulkheads between them. There are no bulkheads between the compartments. If I'm dishonest in one area, I'm dishonest in all areas. If I've got compulsive behaviour in any area of my life, including food, romance, sex, whatever it is, then I'm subject to compulsions beyond my mental control. It's just a matter of time before a drink gets me. So this is, for me, this is all, I don't care about, God love you all, but you do what you want. But for me, this is all or nothing. And my life is at stake here. It talks in step 4 about our decision, step 3 being a vital one, which means this is to do with my actual life. This is life and death. Now, alcoholism, not alcoholism, means the physical craving is still there, but the mental obsession is still there. All it is a bit of my brain which periodically pumps out the idea, let's have a drink. And my brain is just wired to obey that. So I've got to live in a way other than obeying my own thoughts. Now, I get to use thinking as part of the programme. It says on page 87 that God gave us brains for a reason, and it is because we're supposed to employ them. God will do for me what I can't do for myself, but will not do for me what I can do for myself, which means I need to think things through on a regular basis. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been given a brain. But I cannot have my brain, my thoughts, as the highest court in the land, the highest authority. The person that I go to must not be me. There's got to be something else. And AA gives me a different way to live. And the first thing it gives me is a program of 12 steps. And that works in 2 little cycles, a cycle of the first 9 steps, which clean out the past, the cycle of the last 3 steps, which clean out the day. I've got the principles of the program. Sometimes people come up with these cute little lists of 12 principles. That's selling yourself short. There are hundreds of principles in the big book, which is the basic text. And the program is the whole of the contents of the big book up to page 164. It's not just the few words on the scrolls. That's like the titles of recipes. It's not the full recipe. The recipe can be 30, 40, 50 pages long with hundreds of principles in those pages. There's a lot out there. And if I don't know exactly what's in that book and in the traditions and the concepts, that's not your fault. That's on me. If I don't have it's in the public domain. You can get it for free. You don't even have to pay for it. It's all there. The program is there for me to use. So there's the program, the principles, there's prayer, which is the most powerful act I take every day. It feels like nothing has happened. It looks like nothing has happened. But my experience is, if you really say, God, I'm just so done with my life. I don't care about my life anymore. You just do something with it because my attempts have failed. When I was about 35, someone said to me, are you happy? And I said, no. He said, when did you think your plan was going to kick in, Buster? You've been trying to be happy for your whole life. 35 years you failed. Give up. Turn it over to something else. Literally anyone could do a better job than you're doing. So give it up. When I say to God, you take my will, you take my life, just give me things to do from in the morning until I get to bed at night. Just give me things to do. Now, it doesn't look like anything has happened. God said, right. He said it. Let's get cracking. And I just want to pull back the curtain and say what this looks like after being sober almost 32 years is God is extremely interventionist in a billion ways. I'm amazed at how often when I'm paying attention, you couldn't orchestrate the way even just an ordinary day operates. God is in there the whole time. Nothing is by mistake. Everything appears to be either God's deliberate will or something that is being permitted because there's a really good lesson sitting behind it. In the same way that parents allow the kids to play in the garden knowing that they're going to eat the laburnum and trip over and scrape their knee. You don't keep the children strapped to a chair in case they hurt themselves in the garden, but you do keep an eye on them. If they eat the laburnum, you go and run out after them because you need to take them to the hospital. And that's what God will do for me. Sometimes when I'm screaming and complaining because it's sirens everywhere, I'm being taken to hospital by God because I've eaten the laburnum. I want to be playing in the garden. But I have not had a problem in the last 32 years which has not been solved by applying the principles of the programme. That's the third P. The fourth P is the people of AA. And it's monkey see, monkey do, but be careful which monkey you pick. Not all monkeys are the same. So I have picked people who are reasonably smart and are funny and keep their feet on the ground and are practical and are orthodox. No wacky ideas. Just straight down the middle of the road. That's what works really well for me. And have a couple of people lined up in case they go off the rails. Just make sure there are a couple of other people you know who literally know everything about you so they can pick up the reins if it all goes south. Those four, programme, principles, people, prayer, unlock a fifth one, which is power. What does the power do? The power does one major thing and a second minor thing. The one major thing it does is when that little thought bubbles up and says, let's have a drink. I'm busy. I have work to do for my higher power. So bye-bye. It's the power to respond like that when I either want to drink or take one of those little corner-cutting excursions which will ultimately lead to a drink. It's what holds me back 100 times a week from doing something really stupid. The minor thing it does, it just happens to sort the rest of my life out. Just by the by. And my life is embarrassingly simple. There's nothing really much to say about it. I have an occupation. I used to have a career. I don't recommend them at all. They're very difficult to maintain. They'll keep you very busy, not in a good way. They'll keep you busy mentally when you're not even supposed to be working. You're thinking about the career. So I don't. What I do looks exactly the same as it did 20 years ago. But I have an occupation. God keeps me occupied for a few hours a day so that I don't think about myself. There we go. My mind is supposed to be used to do God's work well, not to think about myself. I thought that the solution to my life problem would be to think really, really hard in expensive rooms with clever people, and I'd eventually get to a point where there'd be a click and then I'd be happy and functional somehow. And that all that stuff is very interesting and very valid, but it's not what got me well. What got me well was being placed in a chain gang. Getting to work. When I was very new, I said to someone, I'm bored, I'm self-obsessed, I'm unhappy, I'm very poor, I have no money. And they said, get a job. I said, there's nothing I can do. And they said, get an awful job. Just get... And someone gave me an address. They said, go to this address and be there at 6:30 next Monday morning, and they'll get you some work. And I was sent somewhere. I was buttering bread by about 6:45. And I didn't think about myself. And I got more dignity from that simple act than from all of the efforts and years of attempting to achieve things or fulfill ambitions or show them or get something or leap some kind of hurdle. The dignity comes from finding a little place in the world where there's something I can get on with and leaving everyone else be. Just a tiny little thing on the Al-Anon stuff. Detachment is what the whole thing is about. There's a famous journalist who says that connection is the opposite of addiction. I think detachment is the opposite of addiction. It's the opposite of Al-Anonism, certainly. My addiction is about being totally enmeshed with alcohol, with other substances, with other behaviours, with other crazy people, where I don't know where I begin and you end and who's causing what, and it's all just one tangled mess. Connected, I was connected in lots of really unhealthy ways to lots of really unhealthy people and situations. I needed to be unhooked from those cell by cell by cell, so that I can sit in a room for endless amounts of time on my own with no contact with other people, and I'm just fine, buzzing along, keeping it real. I don't need a thing. And from that position of complete detachment, I can relate to other people in a healthy way because I don't need anything from you because I've got a higher power. And so we get out of that transactional thing where I give you the kind of piece of crap that I am in exchange for your wonderfulness. We both open our presents. We've been both playing the same game and we're now disappointed, but we now live together, so we have to work through it. I had to get out of that transactional nonsense and get into a life where I give of myself for fun and for free and accept the other person exactly as they are. So my other half doesn't have any defects of character, not because there aren't behaviours which might raise an eyebrow or two, but because I can't afford him to have character defects. Because if I think he's got a character defect, I'll be hell for him to live with. So I've got a partner that is perfect. I've got a job that is perfect. I've got a home group that is perfect. I live in a country that is perfect. I live in a city that is perfect. It is for other people to go on marches and complain and write letters. I've had to cease fighting everything and everyone because it's the dubious luxury of regular folks, and I'm not regular folks. Detachment. What is detachment? Detachment is when I stop thinking about you and them and it, and I stop talking about you and them and it, and I stop interfering with you and them and it. And instead I say to God, what do you want me to do today? And God says, do this, go there, say that, go home again. And don't hover over it to see what the results are. The things which are none of my business today. The past, because I've dealt with it, because all of the amends are made and I keep the decks clear. The future, because it's in God's hands. I know what's in the future, my higher power helping me moment by moment, day by day, giving me the right thought and action whenever I need it. That's the future. That's the only thing I need to know about the future, so I don't need to think about it. Other people can take care of themselves. They got themselves into that mess. I'm sure they can get themselves out of it. And if they can't, they can ask for help. If they ask God, God will swoop in and send them an angel, so they can look after themselves. The world can look after. It's been here a long time. It does not need me to be in charge of it. The world is not the way it is because not enough people have opinions. So the world does not need my opinions. I'm none of my business, which is such a relief. Can you imagine being in charge of this? Jesus. I am none of my business. My life is none of my business, and the results are none of my business. My job is to, remember that game Tetris where you have to put the blocks in the little shapes? That's like a really fast version of my life, which is much slower. I just take each little brick. I've got as long as I want, put it in its place, then say to God, what's the next one? What's the next thing to do? What's the next thing to do? No rules, no systems, no procedures, just what's next, what's next, what's next. And it shouldn't work. And it would put a lot of people out of business if everyone did it. But it's what works for me. I need to keep it incredibly simple because I can make it incredibly complex. I love AA as much more now. I had a tricky relationship at the beginning. I love AA more now than I did when I was new. I love Al-Anon. I'm really glad you've been so patient. That's what you wonder what we think about here. We think about how patient you are all listening to us. So let's go and have our lunch. Thanks for listening.